Good morning, all of you. Today's class in endocrinology is on anterior pituitary and the hormones which are produced from the anterior pituitary gland. It is like a continuation of yesterday's class by Dr. Venkatachalam sir. And I would directly go into the topic of anterior pituitary hormones. Pituitary gland, which is otherwise known as the hypophysis, is situated in sella turcica, a bony cavity in the sphenoid bone on the undersurface of the brain. The diameter of the pituitary gland is about 1 centimeter and the weight of the gland is about 0.5 to 1 grams only. But it does so many functions with the small size. And the pituitary gland consists of two lobes. One is the anterior lobe and the other one is the posterior lobe. The anterior lobe is known as the adenohypophysis and the posterior lobe is known as the neurohypophysis. And there is an intermediate lobe present in between these two lobes, which is not significant that much in the human beings. And the pituitary gland is connected to the hypothalamus by a pituitary stalk. The development of the pituitary gland is in two parts, that is the anterior pituitary is differently developing and the posterior pituitary is differently developing. The anterior pituitary develops from the evagination of the Rathke's pouch and the posterior pituitary develops as a part of the hypothalamic growth. The blood supply to the pituitary gland is by the hypophyseal arteries, and the hypophyseal portal vessels was talked to you by Dr. Venkatachalam garu the other day. I am not going to the details of that, and you please refresh your memory for that. The anterior pituitary is rich in sinusoidal capillaries, and the endothelium of these sinusoidal capillaries is very much fenestrated. Now coming to the endocrine cells of the anterior pituitary, they are very rich in granules and they store the hormones, and these hormones are secreted from the granules by the exocytosis mechanism and they go into the circulation through the capillaries. There are different types of cells in the anterior pituitary gland. They are the chromophils and the chromophobes and also the folliculostellate cells. The chromophobes are not that significant, whereas the chromophil cells are very much significant, and these again are divided into two types, that is the acidophils and the basophils, depending upon the stains they take. The acidophils form about 50% of the concentration of the cells, and they are known as they are divided into somatotropes and lactotropes. The basophils are of three types. One is the thyrotropes, the corticotropes and the gonadotropes. The somatotropes and the lactotropes form the somatotropin, that is the growth hormone, and the lactotropes form the prolactin hormone. The basophils, that is the thyrotropes, secrete the TSH, that is the thyroid stimulating hormone, and the corticotropes will secrete the adrenocorticotropic hormone, and the gonadotropes will form the follicular stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone. The anterior pituitary hormones are belonging to the category of polypeptides, and these hormones are very much under the control of the hypothalamus for their secretion. And the hormones which are secreted from the anterior pituitary, they control the secretion of major endocrine glands for the growth, development and metabolism. So it is having a widespread functions, and in the same way, if something goes wrong with the anterior pituitary gland secretion, then the diseases will result in widespread abnormalities all over the body. So it is such an important part of the pituitary gland, that is the anterior pituitary gland, which we are going to deal with. Mainly today's topic will be the growth hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. The growth hormone from the anterior pituitary gland, which is otherwise known as the somatotropin. This somatotropin or the growth hormone, which is a very common name, it promotes exclusively the postnatal growth of the person. And this hormone, that is a growth hormone, consisting of 191 amino acids in a single chain. And it is similar to the prolactin and also human placental lactogen in its structure. It is first of all synthesized as a prohormone in the rough endoplasmic reticulum of the cell, and it becomes a hormone as it traverses through the Golgi apparatus, and finally it becomes the hormone proper, and it is stored in the granules of the somatotropes. The regulation of the growth hormone is by the growth hormone releasing hormone and the growth hormone inhibiting hormone, which are secreted from the hypothalamus. And this is also regulated by the feedback mechanisms and also by the insulin growth factor 1. There is another hormone known as ghrelin, which influences the growth hormone secretion also. The basal concentration of the hormone is usually 0.5 to 5 nanograms per ml. And the factors which cause the facilitation of the GH secretion are the exercise, stress, high protein meal and fasting. GH increases, that is the growth hormone increases slowly in infancy, childhood, and there is a spurt in the release of the growth hormone during puberty, and then it slowly declines as the individual attains the adulthood. The secretion of the growth hormone is in a pulsatile fashion, that is, it follows the circadian rhythm, and the secretion is more so during the slow wave cycle, sleep wave cycle, that is the NREM sleep, that is during the third and fourth stages of the slow wave sleep. The metabolism of the growth hormone. The growth hormone binds with the plasma proteins and forms the extracellular fragment of the growth hormone receptor. The growth hormone is metabolized in the liver. The half-life of growth hormone is about 10 to 20 minutes only. Now coming to the mechanism of action of the growth hormone. The growth hormone binds to the growth hormone receptor, and this receptor is a special type of receptor. It does not belong to the tyrosine kinase, but it is an associated receptor of the tyrosine kinase. And this receptor has got three domains. One is the extracellular domain, the transcellular domain, and the intracellular domain, which are all very large. And the binding of the hormone to this receptor will activate a number of enzyme cascades. That is, it acts through the JAK-STAT pathway, which is a very important mechanism for you all to know about it. The binding of the hormone with the receptor will induce the JAK, that is the Janus kinase, and then the STAT, that is the signal transducer and transcription activator, becomes phosphorylated by Janus kinase, and it migrates to the nucleus, and there different induction of different genes will occur, and that will go into the mediation of the hormone action. The JAK2 phosphorylates the intracellular proteins and results in gene transcription, and it also phosphorylates various intracellular enzymes and they are induced, and diacylglycerol is also produced, and it increases the calcium influx and initiates the gene transcription. So for you all to remember is the main thing that has to happen is the gene transcription, which goes or which results in the formation of different types of proteins, and the protein synthesis is the main important task of the growth hormone on the human body. So now I show you the diagram. So here you have the diagram of the mechanism of action of the growth hormone after it binds to the receptor. Now the Janus kinase, that is the JAK, is phosphorylated, and it phosphorylates many substances here. Number one is it phosphorylates the SHC and GRB intracellular proteins, and activates the MAP kinase and results in phospholipase A2. And then it also phosphorylates the STATs, and these reach the nucleus of the cell, and various reactions will occur in the nucleus, and then that finally results in the gene transcription. Again, this JAK also induces phospholipase C, and diacylglycerol is activated, and then protein kinase in turn is activated, and this, with the help of the calcium influx from the extracellular fluid, will enter the cell. This is the whole cell where the growth hormone is acting, that is the target cell. The calcium again will result in the gene transcription by the help of the calcium also. So finally, our important action of the growth hormone is gene transcription by various mechanisms, and that results in the physiological effects of the growth hormone. Now the other important aspect of growth hormone is the physiological actions. What are the actual actions? Previously we knew about the mechanism of action, but now we will go one by one about the physiological actions of the growth hormone. Number one, they can be divided into two varieties. One is the short-term metabolic effects and the long-term effects. The short-term metabolic effects are happening acutely, and they are like the lipolysis. Lipolysis means, you all know, that is the breakdown of the fats from the adipose tissue and result in the formation of many free fatty acids, and they are released into the bloodstream, and they help in the supplying of the energy to the body. And not only that, there is another short metabolic effect, that is the decreased glucose uptake by the cells, that is especially the skeletal muscle cells. And also the growth hormone action is again the formation of gluconeogenesis in the liver, which these are all the direct actions on the target tissues, that is the lipolysis, decreased glucose uptake, the gluconeogenesis are the direct actions on the target tissues. Target tissues are any tissue you take, any tissue in the body, growth hormone acts on that. That becomes the target of the growth hormone. Now coming to the long-term effects. Long-term effects mainly are mediated by certain substances known as the growth factors, mainly the insulin growth factor 1 and 2. And these are known as the, previously they were given a name known as the somatomedins, and they help in the linear growth. So growth hormone, as the name is indicating to you, it is mainly concerned with the growth of the individual, that is the somatotropin, that means the body growth. So this helps in the linear growth. Linear growth means the height of the individual is influenced by the growth hormone. It acts on the how this linear growth happens. The linear growth happens by the action of growth hormone on the epiphyseal cartilage of the long bones. So what is happening for the growth of the epiphyseal cartilage? What are the steps that go into the formation of the increase in the epiphyseal cartilage? One is the collagen will be incorporated with proline, and this proline is converted into hydroxyproline. That is one step. Next one is the proteoglycan chondroitin a little harsh words are there, but still you have to understand. The proteoglycan chondroitin is incorporated with sulfate, and these two steps will lead to the cartilage matrix formation. So the cartilage matrix is formed. Then what happens is there will be increased protein synthesis with the increase in the RNA and DNA synthesis in the chondrocytes. This leads to the increased size and also increased number of the chondrocytes. So this takes the step to the formation of the cartilage. So the long bones will have at the ends the cartilage, and in the center, as you all know, there is the shaft, that is the bone. So as the linear growth, the cartilage is growing and growing, the cartilage will move away from the shaft of the bone, and there is the linear increase, linear length of the bone is increasing. And then that is the lengthening of the bone. And not only that, there is the osteoblastic activity also increases under the influence of the growth hormone. That means the old bone will be replaced by the new bone, and the thickness of the bone will be increased. So this epiphyseal cartilage growth happens till the end of the adolescence, that is till the end of the puberty. The maximum spurt of the growth, that is the linear growth, that is the epiphyseal cartilage growth, will happen till the end of the puberty. And once the puberty has ended, then there will be the fusion of the epiphysis with the shaft of the bone. That it will be the end of the linear growth of the long bones. So the individual cannot grow beyond the tallness to which he had grown till the epiphyseal fusion. So I think you could follow the answer. Next, the osteoblastic activity. As I said, the new bone will be there, and the old bone will be resolved by the osteoclastic activity. So osteoblastic and osteoclastic activities, both of them will be simultaneously happening. And then there is growth in the skeletal muscle by the protein synthesis, and this leads to the hypertrophy of the skeletal muscles and increases the size of the muscles. Next one is there is a stimulation of the growth of various viscera, that is, take for example the heart, take for example the kidneys, take for example the spleen, the liver, whatnot, skin, anything, any organ in the body grows under the influence of the growth hormone. Then the another important aspect of the function of growth hormone is it sensitizes the gonads to the actions of luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone, and promotes the pre-pubertal sexual maturation. This is also one of the important, very important functions of the growth hormone. Then the action of growth hormone on the protein metabolism, that is the anabolic effect. It has the anabolic effect. That means it goes a long way in the protein synthesis. And then the carbohydrate metabolism. It, as I said earlier, it decreases the uptake of glucose mainly by the skeletal muscle cells, and it increases the hepatic gluconeogenesis, and it decreases the insulin sensitivity. This is one of the important functions which you have to underline and remember. It decreases the insulin sensitivity. So with all these features of its action on carbohydrate metabolism, you can come to a conclusion it is almost a pro-diabetogenic hormone. So when somebody asks you name a few diabetogenic hormones, the first and foremost will be the growth hormone, which you have to remember, and some list will follow later. Next, its action on fat metabolism. It is mainly the lipolysis. So lipolysis means there is a breakdown of the fats, and free fatty acids are released into the blood, and it also leads to the ketogenesis sometimes. And because of the release of the free fatty acids, it provides energy during starvation and stress. Next, its action on the electrolyte and water metabolism. So, growth hormone increases the plasma calcium levels because it increases its absorption from the gut. It also has a stimulative activity on the renin angiotensin aldosterone system to maintain the ECF volume. So, it also has a role in the maintenance of the ECF volume. It also, an additional action is it increases the plasma phosphate levels by reabsorption from the proximal tubules. And so, something to learn about the somatomedins here. The somatomedins are nothing but the insulin growth factors 1 and 2. As I said before, the insulin growth factor 1 is very helpful in the action of the growth hormone after during the postnatal life, after the birth of the individual. And IGF-2, that is the insulin growth factor 2, helps in the growth of the fetus. So, IGF-1 has nothing to do with the fetal growth, and IGF-2 has nothing to do with the growth after the birth. So, the IGF-1 is also known as somatomedin C, and it causes the cartilage and skeletal muscle growth. Now, that brings to the end of the physiological actions of growth hormone, and the concluding part will be the applied physiology, that is what are the diseases that could affect the growth hormone. So, mainly you can remember two things. One is acromegaly and the other applied aspect is gigantism. Most often these two questions are asked for short notes in your examination. So, you have to be very careful regarding the features of these two conditions. So, what is acromegaly? Acromegaly is nothing but the growth hormone increased secretion after the epiphyseal fusion. So, you have to very well remember here that the growth hormone increase happens after the epiphyseal fusion, and here you have also the prolactin increased secretion also along with the growth hormone increased secretion. So, what are the features? This occurs due to the acidophilic tumor of the anterior pituitary gland. So, this acidophilic tumor results in increased secretion of the growth hormone as well as prolactin. So, the features are, one is the prognathism, that is the protrusion of the jaw bones, and there is also enlargement of the frontal, mastoid, mandibular, ethmoid bones, and there is the protrusion of the frontal bones resulting in the bossing of the brow. That is one feature. Next one is there will be the coarse facial features also will be there, skin thickening will be there, there is vertebral periosteum growth, and because of the overgrowth of the periosteum of vertebra there will be kyphosis, and also there is periosteal growth of the metacarpals and the metatarsals, whereby the hands and the feet will look very much broadened and large in size. There will be the growth of the viscera also, like there will be the cardiomegaly, increase in size of the heart, hepatomegaly, increase in size of the liver, splenomegaly, increase in the size of the spleen, renomegaly, increase in the size of the kidneys. There will be increased growth of the tongue. So, there will be tongue enlargement, and then there will be osteoarthritis because of the changes in the skeletal frames or the bones forming the skeleton. Next, the adrenal gland size also increases. The accessory reproductive organs also grow in size, that is increased body hair will be there. There will be gynecomastia, and sometimes there can be also lactoria. And then if you go inside and see, it will be the increase in the protein in the body and decreased fat in the body, and because of the tumor there will be visual implications, that is the bitemporal hemianopia can occur because it is happening there, that is optic chiasma is involved because of the growth of the adrenal gland. And as I said, there will be gynecomastia, sometimes there can be the milk secretion also. Now coming to the zygantism. Zygantism is the condition of increased growth hormone secretion before the epiphyseal fusion with the shaft of the bones. So, this is happening before the fusion of the epiphysis with the shaft of the bones. That is why there will be enormous increase in the length of the individual, that is the tallness of the individual is very high. That means he can grow even up to 8 feet height. And the other features are the gynecomastia, large hands and feet, the coarse facial features, and also there can be decreased libido or impotence. And these are the two important applied aspects regarding the increased secretion of growth hormone after the fusion of epiphysis, that is acromegaly, and before the fusion of epiphysis, that is zygantism. Now, what about the hyposecretion of growth hormone? So, if the growth hormone secretion decreases. So, one is the growth retardation can happen even in kwashiorkor, where the protein is very much decreased because of the decreased somatomedin levels, whereas the growth hormone levels are normal. That will be there. So, if the somatomedin levels also decrease, then there can be growth retardation, which usually happens in kwashiorkor. Next one is, there is another condition known as African pygmies. So, what is this African pygmy? That means a short stature of the individual. Here the default is in the receptors, and also there will be decreased receptors, and also there will be decreased level of IGF-1, that is insulin growth factor 1 will be decreased in secretion from the liver. So, that results in African pygmies. They are short in stature, but usually the mental capacity is normal. And there is another short stature by name Laron dwarfism, another dwarf known as Laron, L-A-R-O-N, Laron dwarfism. So, here the fault is in the GH receptors. There is congenital anomaly of the GH receptors, where the GH properly cannot bind with the receptor, and the action cannot be brought about. So, these are the applied aspects of the growth hormone secretion, either it is increased enormously or decreased enormously. But the main thing you have to remember here is, even though there is short stature due to hyposecretion of various causes of growth hormone, the mental capability of the individual is almost normal, in contrast to the dwarfism of thyroid hormone deficiency. So, that is the glaring difference between the dwarfism which is produced due to growth hormone deficiency and dwarfism that is produced due to thyroid hormone deficiency. So, the mental capabilities are very much there present in the dwarf produced by decreased growth hormone deficiency, decreased growth hormone, and it is mental retardation which is very glaring in deficiency of the thyroid hormone. So, I hope you could follow me, and because we are not having an interactive session, if you have some doubts, you please consult the concerned standard textbook and clear your doubts. So, not the least, I hope you are all okay by now, and you continue to be okay. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you.